I guess we're rolling. How you doing? I would say good to see you, but we're not in person. We're online. So this is COM 100, Introduction to Human Communication Theory, with a little bit of public speaking mixed in, which is weird because it's online, and I'll explain all of that later. My name is Frank Switzer, and I'm going to be your instructor for the next 8 weeks, although you're really only going to see me twice on video. Sorry about that. Ordinarily, we are in class for almost 40 hours during the 8 weeks, but you're just going to get a couple of videos, and then the rest of the time we're going to interact through Canvas. I am available if you would like to meet in person for coffee or whatever, but you should know that, first of all, I've been at Paradise Valley Community College for 21 years as an adjunct instructor. So I'm a part-time instructor. I am not full-time faculty, so I'm not a resident faculty member, so I don't have an office. And even if I had an office on campus, we probably wouldn't be able to meet there right now anyway because of COVID restrictions. And so if you want to meet with me in person for some reason, all you have to do is email me or contact me through Canvas, and we'll set up a time and a place. But maybe even better than that is you could also set up a Zoom call with me, and we can just Zoom with each other. Then we don't have to get in our cars and go anywhere. I'm fine doing either, but I just wanted to give you that option. You can always email me a Zoom link, and you can set up a Zoom call with me. So COM 100. I've been teaching in the Communication and Humanities Department at PVCC for 21 years, and I've never done online teaching until these past 2 semesters. I have written online material for other institutes of higher learning, other universities, but I've never actually taught it. But with COVID, pretty much we're all being forced to figure out how to teach online. And so the difference between online and in-person, I'll try to define it quickly. Teaching communication online seems like it doesn't belong, and in many respects, yeah, there are some experiences that you're not going to be able to have online that we're able to do in person. But at the same time, especially with COM 100 and to some extent COM 225, which is the other class I teach, which is Advanced Public Speaking, there are things that you need to be able to finish your curriculum, and so we need to get this out there and make sure that it's available for you to finish. So the class is going to be online. I want this to be not easy. It shouldn't be easy necessarily. We're not trying to dumb it down. We're not trying to be lazy about this. But we desperately want this class to be accessible as it possibly can be for a class that's not in person. And at the same time, we do want it to be substantive. So we think you're going to learn a lot in this class, but in some respects, it's going to be a little bit better than taking it in person. The way it's going to be better, in my opinion, is that you're not going to have to get into the car, drive to class, find a parking place, walk into the classroom, and then sit and listen to me lecture for 2 hours every time we meet. Some people would see that as a tremendous advantage. You're going to have to watch a couple of videos of me, a couple of other videos that I'm going to ask you to watch of other people, which are much shorter. And so there is some time that you're going to save by taking this class online. And yet, there's going to be a weight of work that you're still going to have to complete. The amount of assignments, the number of assignments, the gravitas of the assignments is not going to change. You're just going to be doing them digitally and online rather than in person. So the good news is that there are no in-person time commitments, but I expect that you're going to commit to do the work that's required. Take advantage of the fact that you're doing this online. You can get your 3 credits and move on. Take advantage of that. But also, I want you to learn. I want you to be able to learn. I love the communication discipline. I've spent much of my life devoted to the discipline of human communication theory. I still love studying it, even though I'm 40 years into it. And so I think there's a lot for us to be able to learn through this. I also would like to know you personally, if only through the internet. I do want to know you. You don't have to do anything. I'm not requiring you to know me or me to know you, but I do want to know you if you're interested in that. Don't be shy. I've been doing this 21 years. I love getting to know the students. And so if you want to ask me questions, go ahead and ask questions. If you want to share things, you're more than welcome to share things. And I'm not shy about asking you questions. In that discussion area on Canvas, there's a little discussion area where I can give you feedback on assignments or quizzes or tests or whatever. There's going to be times when I give you feedback on assignments and I ask you questions in that feedback. Not for points, merely because I'm curious. I want to know where you work, if that's an interesting thing. I'm not going to stalk you. I'm just interested. I am interested. So, like I said, though, I expect that you are going to commit to the work that is required in this class. And as such, you need to be aware that there is an attendance component to this class. It's a little bit different than in person. In person, I get to just check off whether or not you showed up for class. The attendance component in this class, and I'll talk more about it when we get into the syllabus, but the attendance component in this class has to do with, are you doing your assignments and turning them in on time? And if you begin to not turn in your assignments, if we go a week or 10 days without you turning in assignments, my assumption, and this is backed up by not only Paradise Valley Community College, but also by the district, Maricopa County Community College District, my assumption is that you have dropped the class and I will drop you from the class. So you need to do your assignments. And you need to understand that we should all know that since it's an online class, you have access and accessibility to this class from virtually anywhere. I've learned in the last couple of semesters, I'm just telling you, don't try this. I've had in other classes people not do assignments for 3 weeks, and then they'll contact me and they'll say, oh, I was out of town. Okay, what you're trying to get me to believe at that point is that Phoenix is the only city in the world with Wi-Fi. That just doesn't wash. If you're out of town, you can still access this class. That's the whole point of being online, is that you can access this class from anywhere, including rural Iowa. I'm going to be in rural Iowa in a couple of weeks, and I will have no trouble accessing this class. Neither should you. So attendance is going to be dependent on whether or not you're doing your assignments. You need to make sure that you look at when the assignments are due, get after the assignments, don't procrastinate, don't put it off, get your assignments done and get them turned in. And by the way, they're really not that hard to do. So I'll talk more about the assignments later. Let's review the syllabus, because that's primarily what we're going to do here, and then I'm going to add some stuff to the syllabus so that it'll help explain it. And then I'm going to also talk about a basic communication model just to get us started into this class, and then that'll be it for this video. So grabbing the syllabus, it would probably help you to go ahead and bring it up on Canvas and follow along with me. I'm not going to read every word. That would be awful. But I'm going to try to unpack and explain some areas of the syllabus that would help. So if you are looking at the syllabus, it's Communication 100, Introduction to Human Communication. I would say Introduction to Human Communication Theory. That's really our specialty. The room is online. There's your section number, whatever section you happen to be in. And essentially we're going from Monday, May 22nd through May 14th, although I'm going to make this video available a little bit earlier than March 22nd, not May 22nd to May 14th, but March 22nd to May 14th. I'm the instructor, Frank Schlitzer. There's my email, but you can also message me through Canvas, obviously. No office hours. I never have had office hours. You have to actually schedule an appointment, so that would be a Zoom appointment, or if you want to meet somewhere. There's your course description. It's the theory and practice of communication skills in public, small group, and interpersonal settings. By the way, I would reverse that order. Primarily what we're going to study here is communication theory in interpersonal settings, but we are going to touch on small group and we're going to do a couple of speeches as well. Some of you maybe signed up for this class hoping that there wouldn't be any public speaking involved, but there is. But here's the advantage again. You're not going to have to give your speech in front of an entire audience, which scares people. You're going to have to give it to some recording device like your phone and then upload it. Now, some people think that's even scarier than giving it to an audience, but either way, there are 2 speeches that are involved in this class. No prerequisites, 3 credits. For this 8-week, 3-credit course, you should expect to spend maybe 10 or 12 hours a week on coursework. However, the hours may vary depending on the individual skill level. There are 2 required textbooks. The Adler book, which is the first, well, there are other authors as well, but Adler's the primary author. He's a terrific communication scholar. Essential Communication is the name of the book. Now let me talk a little bit about this first book in comparison to the book we used to use. For my first 19 years at Paradise Valley Community College, we used Joseph DeVito's book, a textbook on human communication theory. That book was wonderful. It was very good. Joseph DeVito is an exceptional scholar in the area of communication. The disadvantage of the DeVito book, as good as it is, one, he hadn't updated it in a little while, and so the content was just starting to get a little bit dated. Some of us were getting nervous about how the content was getting a little bit dated. We needed something fresher and more updated, and he hadn't updated it recently, a new edition. Second of all, DeVito writes much more academically than Adler and the co-authors write their book in. And so his book was much thicker. It was very good, very readable, but it was also pretty thick. And so the reading assignments were considerably longer with the old textbook. And then here's the third one, which may be the biggest prize for each of you. The DeVito book was almost 3 times as expensive as the Adler book. The Adler book costs way less money. And as a result, if you're going to rent it, it's going to cost way less money as well. I have also found in reading and studying the Adler book that it's an exceptional book. It's well written, it's easily readable, it's highly applicable to today's context, and I think you'll really like this book very much. So I'm a big proponent for this textbook that we've been using now for about the last year and a half. The second book is a book specifically about public speaking, which you'll need. It's written by Paradise Valley Community College's own Marilyn Cristiano and Felicia Ramirez, and I am a public speaking, I don't know, you could call me an expert on public speaking. I've read public speaking books, hundreds of them. I've been doing public speaking all of my life, and I can tell you without reservation, and I know you're going to say, well, you have a bias because they're colleagues of yours. Okay, fine, maybe I do have a bias. I've never read a public speaking book that's better than Cristiano and Ramirez's book. It's just fantastic. And here's the thing I like about their book. Number one, again, it's very affordable, but here, even better, number two, it's written almost in a memo form, which means it takes so much less time to read and assimilate the information in their book than it would any other public speaking book. And then third, the way they organize you, the student, to present good public speeches is just phenomenal. It's the best organizational tool I've ever seen in the area of public speaking. And in fact, when I teach, I also teach public speaking to master's level students in another context. I use their book in a master's level context to teach adult students how to do better public speaking. So that's how high I am on their book. So really good book. Both are required. You need to get both of those books, either buying or renting them. The next thing is the official course competencies in theory. Every one of these course competencies you will be better at. Having taken this class, at the end of this class you'll be better to some degree, maybe marginally and maybe significantly, to some degree better in each one of these things. And then after that, I'm not going to review those. You can read those on your own. After that, we have some helpful coronavirus information and links. If you're wondering about what's going on with accessibility to the campus and what we're doing in terms of our protocols for keeping things clean. None of this should really matter too much right now because we're not on campus, but it's good to know that the school is working very, very hard in the midst of this virus and this pandemic situation. Now we get into course requirements and assignments. So I'm just going to hopefully answer some questions that you might have in just reading the syllabus. And then if you have further questions, you just need to message me and I'd be happy to answer them. By the way, I promise you I'm going to answer things as quickly as possible, generally within 24 hours. But you need to know that I have had the first vaccination for COVID, and I am scheduled, interestingly enough, on Monday, March 22nd for my second vaccination. And from what I understand, the second dose of the vaccination tends to have a reaction for a lot of people, puts them down for 24 to 36 hours. So if you don't hear from me right away on Monday or Tuesday, the 22nd or 23rd, it's probably because I'm not feeling too well. But I promise, I will get back to you. I'm usually very quick about answering students, giving feedback on assignments and answering students' inquiries. So just so that you know I'm getting that second dose on Monday the 22nd. So the first thing is what you're doing now is you're watching this video and you're going to be asked to answer some questions in Canvas and submit the answers to those questions right away. This is due March 22nd. We want to know right away who's in and who's out. A number of students will register for classes and then they will never show up. We want to know right away who's in and who's out so that we can call our class rosters and get everything accurate as to who's in and who's out. So make sure that you do this assignment right away. There are quizzes in this class. It's a 100 level class, which means you're learning the vernacular of the communication discipline. And one of the best ways to do that is to be quizzed on it. So there are 8 quizzes. Each quiz is worth 35 points. I'll have a little bit more to say about that. As noted on the schedule will tell you when they're due, and they're going to be due pretty quick. You need to be looking at that. It's also listed in Canvas, obviously. In the Canvas area, you can go in and find out when the quizzes are available and when they're due. Quizzes are going to cover the reading assignments as well as the lecture and discussion notes that I provide for you. So you need to read the sections in the Adler textbook or in the Cristiano textbook that I'm asking you to read. And then you also need to read my notes that I have prepared from what I usually do in class, but you need to read through those notes. And trust me, reading through my notes is much faster than actually sitting and listening to me. So it's going to go much faster for you. But the quiz will cover the reading assignments as well as the lecture and discussion notes. The quiz format is generally a combination of true, false, multiple choice, and fill in the blank, and sometimes some matching items. And you have to submit the quizzes by the time that the due date says, or no points will be given. You don't get any points for the quiz if you try to submit it late. Canvas won't even let you submit it late. I know some of you will try to email it to me, but you need to do it on time. Now, some other information about the quizzes. First of all, again, an advantage of taking this class online is that the quizzes now essentially are open book. There's nothing I can do to keep you from looking at your notes. And go ahead, look at your notes. Not going to make any difference to me. I just want you to learn the material. So if you look at the notes and you do well on the quiz, yes, good for you. But in class, we don't let you look at the notes. So that's an advantage of taking the class online. Here's the second thing. You're going to look at these quizzes and you're going to go, wait a minute, if I get everything right on this quiz, that's more than 35 points if you know how to do basic math, which you probably do. But you're going to look and you're going to say, gee, there's 20 questions. Each question is worth 2 points. That's 40 points. So do I get extra credit if I get them all correct? And the answer is yes, there's extra credit built into the quizzes. Yay. There's one quiz that's actually, you could get 45 points out of 35 points if you do well on that quiz. The rest of them are essentially 40 points. Now, I will also say that because I'm giving you a little bit of extra credit, occasionally you're going to run into a question on a quiz towards the end that has nothing to do with communication theory. It's just, I want to ask you a goofy question, and you're going to realize that there's probably no way to answer it incorrectly, but whatever. It's a way for me to be able to get to know you. It'll be, or maybe it'll be about a video that I asked you to watch, a Brian Regan video or something. Maybe it'll be asking you to rate who the greatest hockey player in the history of hockey is. And it'll be multiple choice, so those of you that don't know anything about hockey, at least you'll have a list of names that you can choose from. Anyway, because there's extra credit, I get to ask some goofy questions occasionally. So there's 8 of those. Then there are 8 class exercises, or we would call them activities if it were in person, but now it's more of an exercise. So there are 4 points in class, quote, in class, exercises or activities. Each of those is worth 25 points as noted on the schedule. Again, that needs to be submitted by the due date and the time, or no points will be given. Essentially what these exercises are now, because they're not in class, is that you're going to read the material that I've given you for a particular section, and then you're going to answer some questions. And some of those questions will be answered with one word, and some of those questions will be multiple choice. Some of those questions are true false. Some of those questions, though, I'll ask you to write 50 to 100 words in essay form to answer the question, and that's how you get those points. There's one exam in this class. It's a final exam. It's worth 220 points. It's going to cover the Essential Communication book, the Adler book, and all of my lecture and discussion notes on the concepts and terminology. The exam will be a combination of true, false, multiple choice matching, and fill in the blanks. Once again, though, there are extra credit points available on the exam. If you get everything right on the exam, you miss absolutely nothing on the exam, you could actually end up with 246 points on the exam. And again, the exam is essentially open book because you're not taking it in class. Speeches. There are 2 speeches. One is informative and one is persuasive. The specific requirements and details of the speeches will be outlined in written form, and we can discuss these assignments via messaging prior to finishing and finalizing the assignments. The informative speech is worth 70 points, and the persuasive speech is worth 66 points. You can't pass this class unless you turn in at least one of these speeches. That's really important. And grading of the speech is based on the common Paradise Valley Community College Communication and Humanities 012 grading template, which you can find the template in Canvas. It's really easy to look at and understand how you're going to be graded. And then the last assignment is that you will also write a self-evaluation of your informative speech. So you're going to give your informative speech. You're going to record it on a recording device, probably your phone or an iPad. You're going to upload it to me so that I can watch it and grade it. It'd be helpful if you had a camera person or maybe even a small audience, although that's not 100% necessary, and I know that for some of you, you may not even be able to do that. You're just going to have to set up your phone and hope for the best. But you will upload the speech, I'll watch it and I'll grade it. You'll also rewatch the speech yourself, and then you're going to write a self-evaluation of the speech. It's worth 30 points, and in that self-evaluation paper, you're going to write about what you think went well in the speech, what didn't go so well, and what you might do differently in your next speech. The evaluation should be 2 pages, typed, double-spaced, 12-point font, 12-point font, 1-inch margins all around, and it's worth 30 points. And it'll be graded based on adherence to the 3 requirements listed above, as well as attention to proper grammar, spelling, formatting, and narrative organization. You should also have a paragraph of introduction and a paragraph of conclusion for a total of 5 paragraphs on that speech. There's going to be a separate assignment for that, which you'll look at in Canvas to understand that. As for PVC policy, you need to turn in all your work directly to the instructor, which makes sense online. That's generally for in-person classes. There are expectations. You're in this class to learn and to receive college credit, and I'm here to create assignments that meet the requirements for our accrediting agency and help you to learn about the discipline that we're talking about here. And so in order for us all to achieve those goals, it's important that we have a smooth and respectful working relationship. So as the instructor, I covenant with you, I promise you that I'm going to maintain a positive and yet critical attitude toward the students and the work. Critical meaning I'm going to look at things with an eye to detail, and I'm going to ferret out ways in which I think that you could improve in the class, and I'm going to ask you questions, and I'm going to seek to sharpen your abilities in the areas of human communication. I'm not going to criticize you. The word critical doesn't necessarily mean I'm just going to walk around criticizing you. It means I'm going to give you detailed input into how you're doing your assignments. I'm going to demonstrate enthusiasm toward the curriculum and the student, hopefully. And I'm going to answer emails and inquiries in a timely manner, usually within 24 hours, usually much faster than that, and within 5 days with feedback on assignments, meaning when you turn in an assignment, it may not be but for a couple of days that I'll be able to get back to you. But again, I strive to get feedback back to the students as quickly as possible. And as the student, it's my expectation for you that you will prepare diligently, that you will not procrastinate, and you will turn in your work on time. You must turn in every assignment, quiz, whatever. You have to turn it in by the due date, or I'm going to start looking at the roster and making decisions about whether or not to drop you from the class. We as instructors are not only allowed to, but in many instances, many contexts, we are asked by the district and by the school to drop students who are not doing their assignments, who are not showing up for class. And the way you show up for class is by doing your assignments and doing them on time. So we're not kidding around about this. I know that sometimes you hear stuff like that and you go, they just have to say that, I'll figure it out, I'll turn it in late, it'll be fine. Don't test us on this. You need to get your assignments in on time, lest you be dropped. And here's the thing, once an instructor drops you from a class, there's really no way to reinstate you. So it's kind of a final deal. So you need to understand that. Don't procrastinate. Turn in your work on time. You will ask for help in a timely manner when needed, at least 72 hours before a due date. It's really frustrating when somebody will message me or email me 2 hours before an assignment is due asking for help on it. That does nobody any good. By the way, your assignments are generally due at 11:59 p.m. on the due date. 11:59 p.m. You need to understand, I'm a morning person. I'm definitely deep in sleep by 11. Actually, I'm usually deep in sleep by 8:30 or 9. Chances are you're not going to get a hold of me past 7 p.m. in the evening. Don't assume you can get in touch with me after 7 o'clock at night. But don't be surprised if I answer your emails at 4 in the morning. That's pretty common because I'm an early morning person. So you need to ask for help in a timely manner. Don't wait. Ask early. And then third, you're going to be flexible, remain positive and respectful, and you're going to try your best under the circumstances. Look at that. There's a typo in the syllabus. It's not try you best under the circumstances. It's try your best under the circumstances. So, and the circumstances being that we're in the middle of a pandemic. Some students are thrilled with this whole online thing. I get that. Other students are sick of the online thing. I get that too. I got into teaching at the college level primarily to do it in person because I love the in-person interaction, especially in the communication discipline. But pandemics cause change, so we had to pivot and start doing it this way. Hopefully by next fall we'll be back in person. So then you have your policies and statements. You need to know, if you don't already, that PVCC is thoroughly invested in proper academic learning environments that maximize the ability for students and instructors to engage in the course material. And for that reason, we have all these policies that you have to adhere to. You can't attend this class unless you are registered for this class. We're directed, by the way, to withdraw you if you don't attend the first class, which would be this video and turning in this assignment. So you got to get with it. You got to get on it. You got to start doing the work. Attendance. So I told you I'd mention this attendance thing again. Attendance is tied to all assignments, quizzes, and activities required to be submitted to the instructor, that would be me, on time in this class. Due dates are clearly identified in the assignment on Canvas. There's also a due date list of the assignments at the end of this syllabus. So there's various places you can go to find the due dates. That should not be hard for you to do. Any student not turning in their assignments on time, not responding to correspondence, and not participating in the class as required, in other words, turning in the required assignments, will be withdrawn from the class by the instructor, and you'll be assigned either an F or a Y for the course, which is something you don't want to have happen. If you have to withdraw from the class, I understand. You need to tell me you need to withdraw from the class. That way I can withdraw you from the class without it affecting your grade point average. So communicate with me. This is a communication class. Learn how to communicate with your instructor. That would be good. Late work, you can't make up stuff. You need to turn in everything on time. If there's a reason for the exam or the speeches, you need to make arrangement in advance with me. But in any event, we have to have this stuff done by the end of the semester, and there's no exceptions to that. I have to turn in grades no later than May 15th. And so I think the due date for the final exam is May 14th. So the best I'm going to give you is maybe an 8-hour extension on the exam. Again, the speeches, it's just best to get the speeches in by the due date. The longer you try to prolong that due date, if you ask me for an extension on that, the harder it is to turn it in. That's just been my experience. The more you ask for an extension, the less likely it's going to be that you're going to turn it in at all. Turn it in on time, get it done, get it over with, and get it in. It's better to get some points rather than no points. That's always been my motto. Students may not, at any time for any reason, record conversations between two students, between any students and the instructor, or between instructors. That's been added recently to all of our syllabi for reasons of experience. We found that students were inappropriately recording conversations, private conversations between other students and between students and instructors that they had no business recording. That's a problem, so you can't do that. I have this section about technology. Any technology challenge or problem that you have is your issue, not mine. I've got everything set up from my end. You need to figure it out on your end. And also, prior to doing your speech, which, by the way, here's another advantage of doing speeches online. You can have as many takes as you want. When you're doing speeches in the classroom, you get one take, you get one shot at it, and that's pretty much it. Doing them online, recording your speech, and then sending me the recording of your speech, you can do as many takes as you want. Here's what I want you to avoid doing. Do not record a little section of your speech and then splice it together with another section of your speech and then another section. Don't do that. And I can tell when you've done that. So it's just not helpful. Just start the speech, run through it. Even if you feel like there was a little hiccup in there, run through the speech, finish the speech, turn it in. It'll be fine. The email policy. You have a personal Maricopa County Community College District email address assigned to you, and you are supposed to be using that specific email account to email me. So please use that. That's what we're required at PVCC to be using. Here's the withdrawal statement. If you want to drop this class for any reason, you need to initiate the paperwork. Or you need to initiate contact with me and clearly tell me that you're withdrawing from the class and tell me why, so that I can list the reason in the student information system. So, and unless you initiate the paperwork or initiate a conversation with me, I'm going to assume that you've left the class, and I'm going to end up withdrawing you from the class and giving you an F. That's what we're required to do. With no communication, I have to give you an F for just leaving the class because you didn't do any of the assignments. You didn't do any of the work. So if you're going to leave the class, please contact me and do it quickly so that there's a chance to have a conversation. Now, the last day that you're allowed to withdraw and receive a full refund from this class is coming up pretty quickly. It would be Friday, March 26th, and the last day to withdraw and not receive an F in the class would be April 12th, so that's a little bit further out. There's the policy on instructor-initiated withdrawals. I have the right, at my discretion, to withdraw a student for any other reason as stated by the college or district policy, and believe me, there's tons of reasons. So I know you may have the special, unique reason that nobody should ever be able to withdraw you for. Trust me, it's covered in our policies and statements. It's best just to have a conversation with your instructor about it. It's just best to do that. Don't hide for weeks and then pop up expecting everything to be okay. It won't be okay, all right? I'm speaking from experience. Email communication with the instructor. Emails from the students are only to be done for your Maricopa County account and system, so please try to use that. Academic integrity and conduct, you're supposed to adhere to all the rules and policies for academic integrity and conduct as outlined in the college catalog and student handbook. So it's all listed in there, and we've got it listed in the syllabus here. Inappropriate behavior, if you exhibit any inappropriate behavior, in other words, if you're argumentative, or it's not that you can't argue, there's a difference between debating and arguing and being argumentative. So if you're argumentative, or if you're disrespectful to the instructor or any of those students, if you're not focusing right, if you're a disruption, we're going to have some conversations. There is also opportunities for disciplinary removal from the class, although that's a little harder to do online. A lot of this stuff is for in-person, but you should be aware of it for when in-person classes start again. In addition, every student is expected to know and comply with all current published policies, rules, and regulations as printed in the course syllabus, the college catalog, the class schedule, and the student handbook. You are responsible for all the information you now have in this syllabus. You're accountable for it. There's our disability statement if you need some help with that. There's our grievance policy. We do have a grievance policy, and we handle grievances if you if you want to file a grievance for some reason. We have a way to be able to do that. And then here's some suggestions for exceeding expectations in this and really, frankly, any other class. And I've developed this in conjunction with many other instructors, and I think this is really helpful. You should frequently log into Canvas, read the announcements. Don't just go to the assignments. Occasionally I'm going to post an announcement that has really important information that you need. So check your announcements as well, and be aware of assignment details and due dates. And then also check for feedback from me. I do give feedback. Not in every single instance, but I tend to give a lot of feedback. I have had students tell me that I give more feedback than other instructors. Some students love that. Some students are completely indifferent toward it. So fine. Read the textbook and instructor notes that I have provided. Practice your speeches. I'm telling you, the 3 P's of effective public speaking: plan, prepare, and practice. Planning your speech is thinking about what your topics are going to be, kind of looking online and reading some stuff to see if that topic would be good. Preparing your speech is actually starting to put together your outline, putting together your content, figuring out what goes where. And by the way, I'm going to ask you to watch a video on all of this. And then practicing your speech. A lot of people think that planning and preparing the speech is enough. They never have to practice it. No, practicing it is important as well. Practice your speech. And practicing consists of 2 things. One, it consists of timing your speech to make sure that you're going to give your speech within the allotted time frame. And secondly, practice your speech out loud so that you can wordsmith your speech. Because, write this down, the written word and the spoken word are 2 different things. Writing for somebody who's going to read something and then writing for somebody who's going to listen to something are 2 different things. We hear things differently than we read them. And so you may have written a beautiful essay, but when you read it, it just doesn't translate to oral communication. You need to take what you've written out, take your notes, take your promptings, take your sentence outline, whatever it is, and recite it out loud to see if it makes sense out loud, if it makes sense to the ear and not just to the eye. Begin planning your speeches early and ask the instructor for timely clarification of speech assignments. For your informative speech, the greatest counsel I can give you, and by the way, I'm going to ask you to watch an Andrew Stanton video that also affirms this. The greatest counsel I can give you is, you're looking for a topic for your informative speech. Here it is. Do what you know. Use what you know. If you know about horses, give an informative speech on some aspect of horses. Barrel riding, saddling, cleaning, whatever, shoeing them, whatever it is. If you know about horses, probably give a speech on horses. If you know about residential real estate, give a speech on that. If you know about karate, give a speech on that. Whatever it is that you know about. That's generally best, to do what you know, use what you know. Ask clarifying questions about the textbook materials and my notes. Submit all assignments, quizzes, exams on or before the due dates. Now, is that not like the sixth time that I've mentioned how important it is to submit your assignments and quizzes and speeches and exam on or before the due dates? I hope you're getting that. And then enjoy the learning experience, appreciate the opportunity, and apply what you have learned to situations beyond the class. That's the beauty of the communication discipline. I would argue that communication, maybe along with psychology, but especially communication, is the most applicable to real life discipline that you can study in college. Yes, math is applicable too, but to be able to apply math takes sometimes semesters and years of learning before you can actually go out and apply it. You have to build. In communication, you can sit through one chapter in your book and one batch of my notes, and boom, you got stuff that you can apply to your life and your relationships right now, that day, immediately. That's the beauty of the communication discipline. So the grades are done on a straight 10% breakdown. So if you get 90% or better in the class, you'll get an A. And the beauty of that, again, is that there are more than 100% worth of points available in this class. So if you get 90% or better, it's an A. 80% to 89.999%, it's a B, and so on down the line. And then there's the schedule with the due dates and exactly what it is that you're supposed to be doing with those assignments and quizzes and all of that, and when they are due. Something else I was going to mention about that, but I can't remember what it is right now. Maybe I'll look on my other notes here. So that's the syllabus. A couple of other things before we are done here. Caleb, how deep into this are we right now? How many minutes do you think? My camera person, Caleb Wiseman, everybody.
45.
We're at 45? Okay, this will probably be another 20, 25 minutes. So I mentioned the fact that you've got class notes to read in addition to the textbook assignments. Here are the other videos that I want you to watch. There's an Andrew Stanton video called Make Me Care on storytelling. It's about doing what you know, and it's about the power of the enthymeme, although he never uses the word enthymeme in his video. It's a 19-minute video. It's a TED Talk. And if you're wondering who Andrew Stanton is essentially the backbone of the screenwriting division of Pixar. So you've all watched Pixar and Disney movies. He's the one who's written a bunch of those movies. He wrote WALL-E, he wrote Finding Nemo. He was involved, he wrote, what was the one with Woody? Toy Story. I mean, the guy's an incredible screenwriter, and you'll really appreciate his video. Now, just a word of warning, his video starts with a joke that is an enthymeme, and I'll explain what an enthymeme is in a minute. But it's got a very bad word at the end, so if you're averse to bad words, I apologize for that, but it really tells a story and helps get his point across. So endure it, live through it, and sorry if that word happens to offend you. So an enthymeme is really very simply this. Here you go. This is going to clear it up for you right away. What is an enthymeme? Aristotle is the guy 2,500 years ago who wrote about what an enthymeme is. It's a powerful tool for public speaking and persuasion. So here's what it is. This will clear everything up for you. An enthymeme is a truncated syllogism. Now you've got it, right? That's it. Okay, good. So here's the most basic syllogism that we know. A equals B, B equals C. Therefore, see, you're already there. That's an enthymeme. Therefore, A equals C. An enthymeme is a truncated syllogism. You can take out any part of this. You can truncate this syllogism. Any one of the three parts, you can truncate it, take it out, and you'll still figure it out. If you know that B equals C and A equals C, you also know that, what is it? C, B equals C, A equals C. You also know that A equals B. Okay? You could also take it out. You could truncate it here. A equals B, A equals C. You know that, what is it? B equals C. All right? So an enthymeme is a way of telling a story and leaving a portion of the story out for the audience to fill in themselves. It gets them emotionally and mentally involved in the story. The way Stanton describes it is an organized lack of information that you give the audience that they're able to figure it out. Here's another way he describes it. He says, never give your audience 4, give them 2 plus 2. That's an enthymeme. And that's a powerful way to be able to communicate and do storytelling. So you need to watch the Andrew Stanton video. I have a 6-step guide video that helps you with your public speeches, your 2 public speeches. It's 40 minutes long. It's a video that I prepared for my COM 225 classes. Yes, it's a COM 225 video, but everything that's in that 40-minute video applies to you as well. So I'm going to put the link in Canvas, and you're just going to click on the link. It's going to take you to my YouTube channel, and you're going to be able to watch that video, and you need to watch that video. It's very important. Then there are a couple of shorter videos that I'm going to ask you to watch that are embedded into the activities and exercises that you have to do. They're Brian Regan videos, and there's one clip from The Office. I'm a big Office fan, and there's a clip in there that I ask you to watch as well. They're much shorter, but you need to watch those clips as well. I think that stand-up comedians are an exceptional way to study the human communication process. They really have a lot to say about that. I would argue that 80% of stand-up comedians' material is about how we communicate with each other. So it's really interesting. Speech topics, like I said, do what you know. You have informative and persuasive speeches, and you're going to have to turn your informative speech in. You're going to have to video record your informative speech and then upload that link either into Canvas or in an email to me. Here's what you need to know about uploading the link for your speech. It might take a while to upload those links to either an email or to Canvas for whatever, or if you have your own YouTube channel, which is maybe the best way to go, and we have a video embedded in the assignments that you can watch that'll help you understand how to start your own YouTube channel if you don't have one. That's also a very good route to go. But you need to know that when you upload your video, it might take a little while. It's very slow. So don't assume that you can finish recording your speech at 11:55 p.m. on the due date and get it uploaded by 11:59. You need to assume that it's going to take a couple of hours. Yes, even for a 6-minute video, it might take a couple of hours to upload that link. So prepare for that. I've mentioned the assignments and the due dates. There's extra credit on the quizzes. Make sure that you look at the assignments, and then I've also posted additional helpful documents to the Canvas site as well. 2 of those documents, well, all of them are related to doing better, to helping you to do well on the quizzes and on the exam. So one of them is very specific to quiz number 5. It's literary devices. You should look at that. The bigger one is actually, it's helpful quiz information. It's like a study guide for every quiz. If you open that document, you'll look at everything that's going to be covered on quiz 1. It's a very helpful guide to what you need to know for each quiz. So everything you need to know on quiz 1, quiz 2, quiz 3, quiz 4, all the way through to quiz 8. And then the last document that's also uploaded is a study guide for the final exam that'll help you understand what'll be on the final exam. But again, all of those quizzes and exams are essentially open books, so you should do well on them. Last thing I want to do is it's something I do in every Comp 100 class. I just want to give you the most basic communication model ever done in history. It's the one from which all other human communication models have been built. It was originally done, and you should take a picture of this or remember this, maybe take some notes, whatever. It was originally done by a couple of scholars named Shannon and Weaver. They were actually engineers. These are their last names, Shannon and Weaver. They were engineers trying to take a snapshot of what the communication process looked like, and it's a two-dimensional snapshot understanding of the communication process. It's the first communication model ever done. It's not in your textbook, but variations of it are in your textbook. So, all communication, it has to be put into a code, either consciously or subconsciously. All communication is put into a code. And then, of course, the receiver of the communication decodes that code using their interpretive framework to figure out what it is you are trying, or not necessarily trying, to communicate. And there's all sorts of codes in how we do this. So what you have is somebody does want to communicate with somebody else, is you have the sender of a communication message, known as the sender. That person is also known as the encoder. You are putting communication into codes, so you are encoding the communication. That message is sent along a channel or channels. This is really important to understand. The vast majority of communication is sent over more than one channel at a time. The vast majority. When we started texting each other on our phones some 22 or 23 years ago, right away we began to realize the disadvantage of communicating with somebody through only one channel, and that would be digital text. Almost immediately we started making emojis. Now emojis is a complete industry, of course, but we started putting together emojis with whatever we could find on the keyboard. So the stupid little colon and the half parentheses for a smiley face or an unhappy face. That was a way of communicating nonverbal communication with our verbal text. So that was a way of expanding the number of channels we were able to communicate from. We try to communicate through multiple channels at a time for clarity, but sometimes communicating through multiple channels creates misunderstandings, and it doesn't clarify, it actually muddies up communication. So if I were to ask Jackie, is there something wrong? And she answers by saying, no. Why? She's verbally saying, no, there's nothing wrong, but her nonverbal response, which was either intentional or not, this could be just totally subconscious, her nonverbal communication is going to tell me, actually, there is something wrong. So then that's called a double bind, when verbal and nonverbal communication actually don't match. So is there something wrong? No. Why? Okay, verbal, no. Nonverbal, yes, there's something wrong. So obviously we go in that case with the nonverbal. So the message is sent over channels. And you're college students, so you should know that if you have a sender down here, you have what down here? Let me hear you. Yes, receiver. And if you have the encoder down here, what do you have down here? Let me hear you. Yes, decoder. This is very cheesy, isn't it? Yeah, I get it. So you're going to receive the coded message, verbal, nonverbal, this two-dimensional board that I'm writing on. You're going to receive the message and you're going to begin to decode it and apply meaning. Decode it, interpret it, and apply meaning to the message. Here's a key. No two people in the whole world have exactly the same code. No two people in the world have exactly the same code. Therefore, communication is messy. Communication is messy. Communication is hard. Have you ever been misunderstood? Of course you have. Everybody's been misunderstood, and that's why. And here you go. I'm a 62-year-old white male, born and raised in Central Phoenix. I've also lived in Chicago and Texas, and I've spent 3 years in New York, and then I came back to Phoenix. I could be speaking to another 62-year-old white male, born and raised in the core of Phoenix, also having experience in Chicago, New York, and Texas, and now back in Phoenix. I could be speaking to this person, and we have two different codes. The differences in our codes are more subtle than perhaps when I'm speaking to somebody who only speaks Spanish, and I only speak English with just a little bit of Spanish. That's a huge code difference. But even two people who are seemingly exactly alike are going to have two different codes. That's why we have misunderstandings. One of the reasons why we have misunderstandings. Another problem is that the sender is ensconced in what we would call a culture, and we're all influenced by our culture, and that the cultural influences how we're going to code, either encode or decode messages. So the receiver is also ensconced in culture. So the differences in our cultures, however slight or however broad, and culture encompasses ethnicity and nationality, geography, sexuality. It encompasses all of those things. That's going to influence how we encode and decode and interpret and apply meaning. So it makes it messy. And then, of course, the minute you start receiving a message, whether the message was intended or not, the minute you start receiving a message, you're going to start sending feedback of some sort. Most of the time, that feedback is nonverbal until there's a break in the verbal from this person and you're expected to respond verbally. But the minute this person starts sending a message, you're going to start sending probably a nonverbal message back. So if I start talking to somebody and I see their facial expression go from a smile to a frown or from a smile to anger, I know that there's something in my message that's affecting how they're responding to my message, and they're giving me feedback that I'm suddenly interpreting. By the way, we think we're really good at interpreting feedback. We're not as good as we think, according to research. Nevertheless, while we're sending messages, we are also simultaneously beginning to receive and interpret feedback from the receiver. It's a very dynamic process, and that makes it messy too. So that adds to the messiness. And then here's the last thing that truly adds to the messiness. These little lines, this is my attempt at drawing lightning bolts. These guys included lightning bolts in the original communication model. So these lightning bolts represent something called noise. Every communication event is cluttered with noise. And there are two types of noise. Two types of noise, you need to know these. The first type is what's called physical noise or external noise. That's noise like right now, we're recording this video, and in the room next to us there's a lot of activity and yelling and whistling and stuff, and so at times I'm getting distracted by this physical external noise. You go to a movie and there's a baby crying, you can't hear the dialogue. You're here you go, wearing masks right now and trying to communicate to people. That's actually a physical barrier, a physical noise-making barrier that muffles our verbal communication and makes it hard for us to hear. So it's physical and external noise. We've all experienced that. Sometimes we have to move a conversation because there's too much noise. I love live music, love it. Just love it. I'm fascinated by musicians who can do what they do, and I prefer to watch it live rather than just listening to it. I'll listen to it on recordings, but I love watching it live. I am challenged by that, though, because I often go with other people to listen to live music, and then they want to talk the whole time. That's a challenge. Anyway, the second type of noise is psychological. psychological, I'm not a good speller, or what's called internal noise. This noise is much more difficult to detect, and it goes on all the time. Here's an example of psychological noise. I was watching Sean Hannity last night, as I always do. I'm a fervent Sean Hannity. Okay, right there, I just lost at least half of you. By the way, I wasn't watching Sean Hannity last night. I was watching reruns of The Office. But if you know who Sean Hannity is, and you don't like him, right there, that was psychological internal noise that makes it hard for you to listen to me. Now, on the other hand, if you really like Sean Hannity, when I said that, you perked up and you were like, hey, cool, okay? That's psychological noise. Psychological noise can be generated by any number of different things. Some people look at me and see that I'm 62 years old, boom, right away they're not interested in listening to me. He's too old. That's psychological noise. Psychological noise can occur when you walk into a classroom and you just had a tragic event happen in your life. You're in no shape to listen to somebody lecture for 2 hours because you're overcome with grief and you're mourning and you're sad and nothing really connects. That's also psychological noise. Psychological noise can be generated by the way another person is dressed. So I remember when nose rings started becoming a thing, I had many people tell me that they struggled to be able to talk to anybody that had a nose ring. That's never bothered me, but that's psychological noise. So this noise also makes this whole process very, very messy. And the idea of understanding communication theory is to help us overcome the messiness of this. Here's the last thing I want to talk about, and then this video is over with. And you're all going, yay! So here you go. Let's say there's a scale or a spectrum from sender to receiver. This is really important in our context. And down here at one end you have 100%, and down here at the other end you have 100%. And right in the middle you have 50% and 50%. Along this scale, and this is a conversation that if you ever took graduate classes in communication, you're going to be asked to write or explore about this or explore this. On this scale, who has the authority over the interpretation and the meaning of a communicative message? Is it the sender of the message, or is it the receiver of the message? Or is it some combination in between? Here's what you need to understand about our current cultural context, and it's been this way now for probably 30 or 40 years, but it's especially been this way in the last 15 years. We are what's known as a receiver-oriented communication culture. This is very challenging because it means that once you've sent a message, however you've sent it, generally you've lost control of the interpretation and meaning of it. It's the receiver that has the most amount of that authority. I would say it's somewhere down here. There is something called reader response theory, which you should look up, by the way, on the internet and study. It's very interesting. A guy named Stanley Fish came up with it. He was a Johns Hopkins literature professor in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. It's a very interesting theory. He says that for certain texts, the reader of the text has 100% authority over the interpretation. That the person who wrote the text has absolutely no authorial intent. He or she has no authority about it. So that's interesting. But really in our culture right now, we're down here in the 90 to 95% area in terms of being a receiver-oriented communication culture and context. I have one quick story to tell you about how that works. Years ago when I was on Twitter, I left Twitter about 6 weeks ago and my life's actually been better. But at any rate, years ago I was on Twitter And there was a friend of mine, and by the way, my other work is I'm a pastor of a church, so that's an important thing to understand about this story, I think. I was on Twitter and I was going back and forth with a friend of mine who lives in Minneapolis, and by the way, his Twitter handle was not Frank Switzer, and he would tweet things about atheism and stuff like that. It was actually pretty funny. But at any rate, I tweeted, we were going back and forth, and then finally I just tweeted and I said, "You are one SMF." You are one SMF. And he went dark for 48 hours. I didn't hear from him. Text, tweet, nothing. About 2 days later, he messaged me and he said, "Hey Frank, I gotta ask you, what did you mean when you called me an SMF?" And I said, "Social media freak, what do you think I meant?" And he said, "I think you need to go to the Urban Dictionary and look up what SMF actually means. Maybe you should too, if you don't know." Probably not the best thing for a pastor to be tweeting out, but I tweeted that out. My intention was that it meant social media freak, but I'm guessing the vast majority of my followers received that as something else, which was probably not helpful to me. So there you go. We live in a receiver-oriented communication culture. There's your Shannon and Weaver model of communication. I want you to know that. There's going to be a lot of questions on the first quiz related to this, and you will be asked on your final exam some stuff about this as well. So that's it. That is the only lecture that you're going to hear from me on, other than the one about public speaking and the 6-step guide that I'm going to ask you to watch. Again, if you have any questions, you want to get to know me in some way, shape, or form, please message or email me. If you have any questions, please let me know. Other than that, have a great semester. We'll see you at the end. Bye.